How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Portland, Oregon's mayor, Ted Wheeler, Oregon's governor, Kate Brown, and a Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden, all blaming Donald Trump and right-wing, quote-unquote, extremists for the violence that's been happening in Portland, Oregon over the past nearly 100 days. You're talking about more than 3 months. Now, I do have video that I want to play of what I'm talking about. But first, I got to back up a little bit here and explain why they're even talking about this right now. There was a caravan of Trump supporters in Portland over the weekend, and they were peaceful. It was all good. I saw one clip where they were pepper spraying some guys from the truck that were throwing objects at them. That was a really satisfying moment. However, it was not a good moment when a man by the name of Jay Bishop of Patriot Prayer, which is a conservative Christian group, he was shot and lost his life out there in Portland by members of Antifa. Okay, Antifa came out there and said, we're going to take out the trash. We don't need anybody. And I think there's one guy that's a suspect that is part of Antifa who had been arrested previously for having a weapon out there illegally. Now, before I get into anything else, let's go ahead and roll the clip from Ted Wheeler and also Joe Biden, which was before the Portland shooting. After we get done watching that, I'll come back. I'll talk about what they said. Then I'll give you my 2 cents, my deep detail analysis, and then I'll wrap it on up with a nice bow on top. So without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
President Trump, for 4 years, we've had to live with you and your racist attacks on black people. We learned early about your sexist attitudes towards women. We've had to endure clips of you mocking a disabled man. We've had to listen to your anti-democratic attacks on journalists. We've read your tweets slamming private citizens to the point of receiving death threats. And now you're attacking Democratic mayors and the very institutions of democracy that have served this nation well since its founding. Do you seriously wonder, Mr. President, why this is the first time in decades that America has seen this level of violence? It's you who have created the hate and the division. And the tweets that he's been putting out in the last 48 hours, attacking Democratic mayors, attacking those who are trying to bring resolution to the violence in their local communities. He has an opportunity to uplift us and bring us together and help us move through this difficult situation in our nation's history, and instead he chooses to play petty politics and divide us. That's my reaction. So I'm going to do the work that I need to do here in my local community with my local officials to take accountability for what's happening on our streets. And I'd appreciate that either the president support us or he stay the hell out of the way.
By standing and recommending that you should be deployed to, quote, dominate your fellow citizens for exercising their rights to peacefully protest, and threatening if governors didn't do something, the president would.
All right, so you saw that, you heard that. Now, we've seen this before. This is nothing new. The mayor of Portland, Oregon, Ted Wheeler, wants to absolve himself of any responsibility. It's not his fault. He didn't do it. He wants to point the finger elsewhere, outside of himself, outside of his state, outside of the governor, okay? And the people that are out there committing the violence every single night. We know what's going on the left coast in Portland, Oregon. Is mostly Antifa, BLM, it's all the same thing at this particular point in time. They're mostly white, radical, extreme leftist group. We know what it is. All right. Now, Trump has offered his help numerous times. Like, hey, come on, National Guard, whenever you're ready, just push the button and I got you. Whatever you need. OK, I'm here for you. But he refuses the federal government's help. As a matter of fact, he wrote a letter to the president and to the federal government, and I'll place that on the screen before you and also in the description box below, saying that he expressly does not want the help from the federal government. So what can Trump do? How is it Trump's fault? Trump is the one that's speaking against the violence that the leftists are out there doing. Okay, Portland, Oregon is not some type of quote unquote right-wing haven. There's not a bunch of Trump supporters out there shooting people and whatnot and terrorizing and burning the federal buildings down. It's not us out there doing it. It's your guys out there doing it, Ted Wheeler. Okay. if you want to blame anybody, you should blame yourself. And not only yourself, but also the local leadership that's been there for a long time in Portland, driving it into the ground. And also Oregon state leadership, Kate Brown. That's what you should focus on. There have been other little quote unquote movements in Portland where the government didn't really intervene, and they should have. You know, the Occupy movements. And then before that, you've had an issue with quote unquote homelessness, read drug addicts just being allowed to be outside, shooting heroin, smoking meth, cooking crack, whatever they want to do. Okay, that's a really big problem. You have all these drug addicts, a general air of lawlessness, no respect for the police. The whole defund the police movement has been happening all over the country, and it's really big in Portland, Oregon. Okay, they hate the police out there. The city council out there in Portland, Oregon voted to defund the police. So if you have less money, you're going to have less officers. You're going to be less effective in a city that needs more help. How does it make any sense? You should vote to increase funding, not remove funding. It doesn't make any sense. But then again, we're on the left coast. We're in Portland, Oregon. We're under the bad leadership of Ted Wheeler and also Kate Brown, the governor of Oregon. What else would you expect? Okay, don't try to blame Trump or anybody from the quote unquote right wing, Kate Brown and Ted Wheeler. It's not their fault. It's your fault. It's your people's fault. Okay, and then to Joe Biden. First of all, that was elder abuse. The clip that you saw that I played at the beginning of this video, that was elder abuse. He does not know really where he's at, where he's going, or who he is. To have him out there running for president is really a shame. Okay, I understand that I want to win, of course, being on the right. I want Trump to win. That's no doubt. But good grief, I mean, give me a living human being to fight up against. Let's let it be a fair fight. Don't put no corpse in there trying to fight against Trump. Okay, the Democratic Party should be ashamed of themselves. So should his wife, Jill. She should be ashamed of herself. Got him out there, got a whole corpse out there. Weekend at Bernie's, Geppetto. It's really a shame. He looks like a million times worse than Hillary Clinton did. And the only reason why he went out there and said that is because, number one, his handlers told him to. But beyond that, the polls are starting to show some interesting things. Now, I don't take stock in polls 100%. Take them with a grain of salt. But when even the biased polls that we know are biased are starting to go in the opposite direction because of all the riots, because of all the protests, because of all the melee, they're starting to be more in favor of Trump and less in favor of Biden. When that goes on, they got to try to get out in front of it and then try to blame Trump for all the violence that's happening. I think I saw Don Lemon on CNN say as much. He was speaking to Chris Cuomo. He was like, okay, Biden, what you need to do is get out in front of it and put all the blame for the riots on Trump. Don't just take that blame by default, because if you don't come out and say anything, it's going to be you to blame, and rightfully so, because it is him to blame. It is the left to blame. Okay, people like Kamala Harris talking about they denounced the riots and the protesting. However, they are funding people who get locked up during the so-called protests and riots. All right, and I'll place that tweet on the screen before you. So how are you going to be against the riots but bail out those that have been locked up as a result of the riots? Okay, I'm against the riots 1,000%, and I'm not giving one red dime directly to anybody that got locked up or indirectly. That means Black Lives Matter, any kind of leftist organization that has even said that we support Black Lives Matter. I'm not giving them one red dime, because that red dime or red cent could make it to the coffers for BLM, and then that could go to these people that have been locked up to get them out, so they're able to come out and keep doing more crime. All right. This is not a conservative problem. This is a liberal problem. And if they become the president and vice president, good grief, it's going to increase, because now you built a base. You can't just say, okay, we support you, we're with you. If you get locked up, we're going to bail you out, and then abandon them. That's not how you're going to be able to succeed, because you're going to have the same issues with riots under your watch. And those that voted for you, thinking that you be the way to solve all the problems in the country, they're gonna be like, wait a minute, we still got riots going on, and they're rioting against you. So what's really going on? So they are really in a bad situation, but it works well for us in the end. I just wish that Jay Bishop and many other people that have been shot during these riots did not have to die. You're talking about David Dorn, David Patrick Underwood, Ty Marie Kelly, and the list goes on. So many people, young people, old people, everywhere in between, black, white, everybody has been affected negatively by this. There have been more shooting and killing victims as a result of the riots than were killed by police brutality in the past few years combined. I'm speaking about unjust killings, of course, of police brutality. You know, some may say that a legitimate shooting is police brutality. That's not the truth. I'm talking about unjust. This whole thing of police brutality is not even a real issue in the black community, as BLM would have you believe. It's just not. Okay, you got all these guys screeching LeBron James, everybody talking about this stuff. All it is really doing is destabilizing the country. For what purpose? So what's the actual end goal? I would ask to anybody that's out there in Antifa and BLM, well, Antifa, I know what's going on. They just want to install communism. It could be the same thing for BLM, those that actually know what's going on. The general morons out there, the mouth breathers, the cannon fodder, they don't know what's happening. They're just out there thinking they're doing something good. They're thinking that this is something that's virtuous because black people are being oppressed. That's what they think, but they're being used as cannon fodder. They're useful idiots, as the great Yuri Bezmenov would say. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? Do you think that Joe Biden and Kate Brown and Ted Wheeler are trying to blame Trump for the riots because they see what's happening right now with the polls? They're not very popular in the Democratic Party. Numbers are starting to slip. This could be a whole coordinated effort from the DNC to get everybody on board. It could have been a conference call with Joe Biden's handlers, not Joe Biden, because he probably sleeps somewhere during this particular time. He might only be awake for an hour out of the day. But anyway, they had a meeting with Joe Biden's handlers and also Ted Wheeler and Kate Brown and say, hey, the riots in Portland, it doesn't look really good. Let's try to spin this and blame Trump for it, although people that are out there rioting and protesting, shooting and killing are not Trump's people. Let's just have that be the case. And people that want to believe it, people that watch CNN, MS-13, DNC, they'll eat it up, they'll believe it, and we'll just go about it that way. Okay, and I think to a certain extent it's been successful. But to those of us that actually know better, that have a brain in their head, that think for ourselves, we know what's going on. It's the left causing all the violence. They want to defund the police. They want to, quote unquote, transform the system, burn down the system. It's not us. We want law. We want order. And we're going to get it come November once the budget for BLM dries up the same way it did in 2016. Mark my words. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.